The lunch rush was in full swing at Daniel's tiny corner cafe, the kind of place where the air smelled of fresh bread, garlic, and butter melting in a skillet. Daniel, a single dad with tired eyes and a warm smile, worked behind the counter, flipping omelets with one hand while keeping an ear tuned to the baby monitor in the back room. His 4-year-old daughter, Lily, was coloring quietly, her giggles mixing with the clatter of plates. That's when the door burst open. A young woman, dressed in a designer suit and heels far too sharp for the cracked pavement outside, stumbled in. She looked flawless, polished, powerful, but the red, puffy eyes gave her away. In her arms, a baby no older than 6 months wailed inconsolably, fists clenched, face scrunched in exhaustion and hunger. "Please." The woman's voice trembled as she reached the counter. Do you have anything?" "She won't stop crying. I've tried everything." Daniel glanced at the baby, then at the woman. Something in her eyes, the desperation, the loneliness, hit him hard. Without a word, he set down the spatula, untied his apron, and came around the counter. "May I?" he asked gently, holding out his hands. The woman hesitated, clutching the infant tighter, as though the world had never given her reason to trust a stranger. But the baby's cries pierced the silence, and finally, she nodded. Daniel cradled the baby against his shoulder, rocking softly. His big, calloused hand patted her tiny back with a rhythm that came naturally to him. Within seconds, the baby's sobs began to quiet. He looked up at the woman and offered a small, reassuring smile. "She's hungry," he said softly, "but I've got something she can have." He handed the baby back to her carefully, then disappeared into the kitchen. Moments later, the scent of simmering broth filled the cafe. Daniel returned with a small bowl of homemade carrot and sweet potato puree, prepared fresh from his daily specials. He scooped a spoonful, blew on it gently, and offered it to the baby. To the woman's astonishment, the baby opened her mouth, tasted it, and stopped crying altogether. Bite after bite, the baby relaxed in her mother's arms, tiny fists unclenching as her eyes began to flutter closed in drowsy contentment. The woman pressed her hand to her lips, her chest trembling as tears spilled down her cheeks. She wasn't crying because her baby was finally quiet. She was crying because the moment felt like a lifeline in a storm she had been drowning in. Daniel didn't pry. He just watched quietly, wiping his hands on his apron until she found her voice again. She choked on the words. "I'm supposed to have it all. The company, the money, the staff. But no one told me how hard this would be. No one told me how alone I'd feel when my baby cried, and I didn't know what to do." Her voice broke, and she looked down at the baby, now sleeping soundly against her chest. "You made her stop. You did what I couldn't." Daniel crouched to her level, his voice steady, calm, like a quiet anchor. "You're not failing. You're just human. And sometimes, even the strongest people need help." For a long moment, the cafe felt suspended in stillness. Just the hum of the refrigerator, the faint chatter of Lily in the back, and the gentle breathing of the baby. The billionaire mother, who had faced boardrooms and contracts worth millions, had never felt so small, so vulnerable, and yet so seen. She looked at him differently now, not as a stranger behind a counter, not as a simple chef, but as a father who understood what it meant to give without asking, to care without conditions. Daniel stood, placing the empty bowl in the sink. "Come back any time," he said, his smile easy, genuine. "The recipe's always the same, simple, but it works." Her tears fell freely then, but they were no longer heavy with despair. They carried something lighter, something healing. Because in that small cafe, with the smell of bread and broth lingering in the air, a single act of kindness had reached deeper than wealth, deeper than pride. Straight into her heart, she clutched her baby closer, whispering softly as though promising herself never to forget this moment. This man, this recipe that had done more than feed her child. It had fed something in her, too, something she didn't know was starving.